Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer. I'm doing a special review here. This is a classic review of Barry Lyndon, directed and written by Stanley Kubrick. And this is a part of a new movie club that I'm doing with some of my friends. So once a month we're going to pick a classic film and watch it. And you know what? I decided I'm just going to do a review for each of them. And by chance, we each picked a couple of films and then randomly selected one from the bunch. And my pick, Barry Lyndon, got selected for our first one, which it's interesting because it's Kubrick. Kubrick is one of the greatest directors of all time, but this is one of the films that I feel like flies under the radar among a lot of his films, because a lot of his films are known as some of the greatest films of all time. And then Barry Lyndon. And this was a commercial failure and a mixed bag in terms of critical response upon release. I myself love aspects about this film and also have some problems about the film. But in general, I don't think a whole lot of directors could have made this work. This is very much a period piece. And when it really comes down to it, it's a story of Redmond Barry, this Irishman who, after messing some things up at home, winds up going on this journey through the 7 Years' War, fighting for the British, fighting for the Prussians, and then finding himself married to this woman, Lady Lyndon, and becoming a very rich lord, and basically mucking that all up. And this film is told into two parts. Part one is the story of how Redmond Barry became Barry Lyndon. The second part is about how Barry Lyndon messed it all up and wound up back to where he was. And looking at this film, it is strikingly beautiful. Stanley Kubrick is impeccable in his direction, and then you have cinematographer John Alcott, and between the two of them, this looks like art. And I know a lot of the pieces are based off of actual art, but you could just look at any shot in this film, cut it out, and frame it on your wall, because it's that beautiful. The texture, the colors, just the way it looks, how it's framed, how everybody is placed in the frame is just strikingly beautiful. The production design, the costume design is impeccable. Then you have these long takes, these scenes lit completely by candlelight. There's one particular scene of gambling where basically two characters are having sex with their eyes, and it's done in such an impeccable way. Nothing has to be said. It's all in the eyes and how it's framed, how it's shot, how it's lit. You only see the white of their eyes when we need to be drawn to them, and it's so incredible. Cinefix did a video. In one of their videos, they talked about this particular scene, and it's exquisite. This film, I feel like, is a must-see by cinephiles. And if you, as a person, can appreciate film and watch film, even if you're not the most engaged in story and such, just by looking at the beauty of the art that goes into it, this is that kind of film. Now, in terms of the story, because technically it's amazing, the story, I like part one considerably more than part two. I appreciate this vagabond story of this man who at every turn just, it's like a Candide story of just everywhere he turns, life just shits on him. And he winds up in this army and that army, saving this person, getting picked up and then falling back down again. Then you get to part two, and there's definitely parts of part two that I could do without. And this is a 3-hour and 5-minute film. I feel like in that second part is where this film could be trimmed down a bit, because there might be some redundancy in the story and what it's trying to portray. But in the second half of the film, it's Redmond Barry once he becomes Barry Lyndon, because like immediately after the intermission becomes a despicable man. The first thing you see is him making out with two mostly naked women, neither of which are Lady Lyndon, his wife. And all of a sudden, I didn't feel any sympathy for him, and it took a while to build that back up. And I feel like it was such a drastic shift at that point, and that's the thing. I don't know how much I care so much throughout the film, especially in that second half. And then there's moments, though, that there's great tension and energy, and there's a particular fight that is really just raw and impactful and like, holy crap, grabs your attention. There's multiple scenes of beautifully drawn out and built up duel sequences. And, it's a period piece, gotta have some duels in there. Because, that's the most mature way to deal with your problems and the classiest. But his relationship with Lady Lyndon and his stepson and his own son that he births with Lady Lyndon, there's some interesting familial tension. It just didn't click as much with me as the first part where he's going on this sprawling adventure. And in general, though, I enjoy watching this film from start to finish. It can be slow. And the biggest thing I have, most of the actors do a really fine job. A lot of the character actors are very memorable. My big thing is, I don't really buy 100% the performance from Ryan O'Neal. And I know he is a big star at the time, a rising star, and this kind of knocked his career off course. But an American actor trying to be an Irishman and not really selling it as well, and then I don't know if he really was able to hit the complexities of this role that it could have been, and it left some to be desired. There's some scenes where I felt like I should have been experiencing some emotion that I don't know if he was conveying. But there are some moments with his physicality that he does really well. One particular scene, he just looks so dejected after an early robbery happens in the beginning, like the first act or so of the film. And I'm just like, wow, he's really selling that. Or unless he was just tired because Kubrick made him do like 150 takes of it. But I'm not the hugest fan of Ryan O'Neal in the film. I think it would have been interesting with a more dynamic leading performance. But in general, I think this is a beautiful and striking period piece which has a really interesting odyssey that it portrays. There might be some parts that could have been trimmed, and maybe the leading performance might not have been as dynamic as it could have been. But I think in general, not masterpiece level Kubrick is still pretty damn good. So I would definitely recommend Barry Lyndon. And I think this is worth taking the time to appreciate it from a film perspective. But those are my thoughts on Barry Lyndon. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always, and I hope you keep tuning into these videos for the movie club. But thank you as always for supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.